At my son's wedding, his wife had me thrown out of the church in front of all the guests. I never imagined that a mother's love could be discarded as easily as a crumpled receipt. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would share. And if you, for even a second, feel like this sounds familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me keep venting. My name is Clara Elaine Miller. I am 63 years old and live in a small apartment in Astoria, Queens in New York City. I've been a widow for 8 years, since my husband Richard died of a sudden heart attack while waiting for the subway in Midtown. Since then, I've raised my 2 sons alone, David, 35, and Ethan, the youngest, 29. For all these years, I worked double shifts cleaning corporate offices in the major financial district high-rises. My hands cracked from all the soap and disinfectant, but I never complained. Every dollar I earned went toward books for David's college, uniforms for Ethan, and medicine when they were sick. I even sold the gold earrings Richard gave me on our first anniversary to pay for David to finish his accounting degree. Ethan was always my favorite. Not just because he was the youngest, but because after his dad died, he became the little man of the house. He helped me carry groceries from the local market, and he came with me to collect payments from offices when some of the bosses delayed my checks. "Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a house with a yard," he used to tell me while we shared a single grilled cheese sandwich for dinner, because money was only enough for 2. Everything changed when he met Vanessa Sterling, a 26-year-old girl from an established, wealthy family in Greenwich, Connecticut. Her father owns a chain of regional pharmacies, her mother manages real estate investments, and she studied marketing at a private university that costs more than my annual salary. The first time Ethan introduced her, they arrived in a white BMW that shone so brightly it looked brand new. Vanessa stepped out of the car wearing heels that echoed like hammer blows on my street's pavement. She wore a dress that cost more than my 3 best outfits combined, and carried a handbag I recognized from the magazines I skimmed at the newsstands. "Mom, this is Vanessa," Ethan said, with a smile I hadn't seen since his childhood. Vanessa extended her hand with her fingers pointed down, as if expecting me to kiss it instead of shake it. Her perfume was so strong it made me dizzy when she leaned in for a greeting kiss. "It's a pleasure, Mrs. Miller," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Ethan has told me so much about you." During the meal I had prepared with so much care, a homemade lasagna that took me all morning, Vanessa barely took a bite. She pushed the food around her plate while commenting on restaurants in the Upper East Side that I didn't even know existed, and her trips to Europe with friends whose inherited fortunes allowed them such luxuries. "And what exactly do you do, Mrs. Miller?" she asked with that sweet voice she used when other people were present. "I am a cleaner," I replied, with my head held high, because I have never been ashamed of working honestly. "Ah, how noble," she said, but her tone was the same you would use when speaking to a small child. "It's admirable that hardworking people like you keep our cities functioning." Ethan quickly diverted the conversation toward wedding plans. They had decided to marry at St. Bartholomew's Church, a grand church in Manhattan, with a reception at a renowned tri-state area country club. Numbers danced in my head like impossible figures. 300 guests, a $30,000 dress, a banquet that cost more than my lifetime savings. "Of course we will take care of everything," Vanessa said, taking Ethan's hand. "We don't want you to worry about anything, Mrs. Miller. You just need to be there and enjoy it." Those words should have sounded like relief, but something in the way she said them gave me the chills. It was as if she were informing me that my participation in my own son's wedding would be purely decorative. That night, after they left, I found Vanessa's plate in the sink, practically untouched. The lasagna I had prepared with such love lay cold and abandoned. Ethan had eaten 2 portions and praised the taste as always, but he hadn't defended my cooking when she dismissed it with barely a taste. As I washed the dishes, I remembered the words of my friend Elena. "Clara, that girl isn't coming to add to your family. She's coming to subtract Ethan from it." The first deep wound arrived 3 weeks later, when Ethan came to visit me alone on a Sunday afternoon. He had that familiar shiftiness he got when he had bad news to deliver. "Mom, I need to talk to you about the wedding." He sat on the worn couch we had bought secondhand when he was 15, the same one where he cried when his dad died, and where he studied for high school exams while I peeled vegetables for dinner. Vanessa and her mom have been organizing everything, and, well, there are some protocol issues. Protocol, a word that had never been part of our family vocabulary. Look, Mom, the church is very elegant, and Vanessa's family, well, they have certain customs. Her mom suggested you sit in the third row, so the altar photos come out more balanced. The third row? Me? The groom's mother? It's just that Vanessa's parents will occupy the first row on the bride's side. And well, since there will be a lot of important relatives. And I'm not important, Ethan? Of course you are, Mom, but try to understand. It's their special day, and the photos are forever. Silence spread between us like a crack opening in the floor. My son, the boy who slept in my bed when he had nightmares, who cried in my arms when kids at school mocked his mended shoes, was now asking me to be invisible on the most important day of his life. And your dress, Mom? Do you know what you're going to wear yet? I told him about the navy blue dress I had reserved at the local discount outlet store, a simple but decent dress I had been paying for in installments for 2 months. Oh, Vanessa mentioned something about the colors. The decoration is going to be in pinks and golds, very elegant. Maybe you could find something more in harmony. Harmony. Another new word in our family dictionary. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay awake in the dark of my bedroom, listening to the familiar sounds of my building. Mrs. Rodriguez's television always left on when she fell asleep watching soap operas. The footsteps of the neighbor on the 4th floor who worked the night shift. The occasional cry of the newlywed's baby on the 2nd floor. I got up and took out the shoebox from my dresser where I kept pictures of my children when they were small. There was Ethan at 5, dressed as a pirate for the school Halloween festival. I had made the costume out of fabric scraps and newspaper, and he had won first place in the contest. In the photo, he hugged me with that huge smile that illuminated the whole picture, proud of his mom who managed to make magic out of almost nothing. When had he started to become ashamed of that same woman who was once his hero? The following days passed in a bitter fog. Ethan stopped visiting on Sundays. He sent WhatsApp messages when before he would come to eat the chilaquiles he loved so much with me. His responses became shorter and shorter. Okay, Mom. Talk later. Busy with prep. One Friday afternoon, returning from work with swollen feet and an aching back from 8 hours of cleaning offices, I found Vanessa waiting for me outside my building. She wore a white dress that looked more expensive than 3 months of my rent, and she held a manila envelope. Mrs. Miller, good you're here. We need to talk. Her smile was the same as always, but there was something different in her eyes. A hardness she had previously hidden behind feigned politeness. Please come up, I said, even though something in my stomach was churning. We climbed the 3 flights to my apartment. I gasped a little on the stairs, but she ascended as if floating, not a drop of sweat on her perfectly made-up face. When I opened the door, Vanessa walked in and stood in the middle of my living room, observing everything with that look I had learned to recognize, the gaze of someone assessing your worth by what you own. Would you like some coffee? Iced tea? No, thank you. This won't take long. She sat on the edge of the couch, as if afraid of contamination. She opened the envelope and pulled out a photograph. Look, Mrs. Miller, I found this on Ethan's phone. It was a photo from my night high school graduation when I was 45. I had studied for 2 years while working during the day and taking care of my children at night. In the photo, I was wearing a borrowed cap and gown, smiling with immense happiness because I had finally finished the studies I abandoned to get married at 17. It's a very nice photo, I said, not understanding where the conversation was going. Yes, very touching. But see, here is the problem. Vanessa took other photos from the envelope. They were pictures of her family, university graduations from elite private colleges, trips to Europe, dinners at restaurants I didn't even know existed. In all the images, wealth jumped out like a slap. Jewelry, designer clothes, new cars, houses with enormous yards. Ethan is going to be part of our family now, and we have a certain social position to maintain. My father has many important businesses, clients who invest millions of dollars in his pharmacies. We have relationships with politicians, entrepreneurs, people who handle serious capital. Her words fell on me like stones, each one heavier than the last. Do you understand what I'm telling you, Mrs. Miller? I'm not sure. I am telling you that Ethan's past, your past, could be a problem for us, for his future. The air caught in my throat. This girl, who could be my daughter, was explaining that I was an embarrassment to the man I had raised with blood and sweat. My family has a reputation to uphold. We have assets, investments, generational wealth. My father's liquid net worth is valued in figures Ethan never imagined, and when we marry, he will become part of all that. Vanessa stood up and walked toward the window that overlooked the building's inner courtyard. She observed the modest homes, the clothes hanging on the lines, the children playing soccer with a deflated ball. Look, don't misunderstand me. You seem like a very hard-working and decent woman, but Ethan will be moving in circles where first impressions matter a lot. He will meet investors who manage cryptocurrency portfolios, people who buy and sell stocks on the exchange as if it were the corner market. She turned back to me with that smile I had already learned to hate. That's why we thought it would be better if you maintained a certain distance from our social life, for the good of everyone. Distance? From my son's life? Not from his personal life, of course, but from the important events. The wedding will have many influential people, company owners, government officials, families who have managed fortunes for generations, people who can open many doors for Ethan in the future. Vanessa sat down again and looked me directly in the eyes. If you truly love your son, if you want the best for him, you will understand that sometimes love means stepping aside. Those words stabbed my chest like daggers. For 29 years, I had believed that a mother's love meant being present, supportive, protective. This woman was explaining that now it meant disappearing. Does Ethan know this? Ethan understands the importance of doing things correctly. He wants to secure his future, and we want to help him achieve that. She stood up and put the photographs back in the envelope. By the way, about the dress for the wedding, my mother and I went shopping and saw a perfect one for you. It's discreet, appropriate for the occasion. She pulled a paper bag from under her arm and extracted a gray dress, simple to the point of being invisible. It was the type of dress a maid would wear in a movie, shapeless, personality-less, designed to go unnoticed. It's your size, and the color matches the decor perfectly without drawing attention. I took the dress with trembling hands. The fabric was coarse, rough to the touch. The cut was so simple it looked like a uniform. Don't worry about the cost. It's our gift to you. When Vanessa left, I remained sitting in my living room, holding that gray dress as if it were a shroud. Through the window came the familiar noise of my neighborhood, the voices of children playing in the street, the vendor yelling for roasted peanuts, the sound of the elevated train passing in the distance. That night, I called Ethan. I needed to hear from his own mouth that he knew nothing of Vanessa's visit, that he disagreed with her plans to make me invisible. Hello? Son, it's me. Oh, hi, Mom. What's up? I'm kinda busy. Vanessa came to see me today. A long silence, too long. Oh, yeah? And what did she want? His voice sounded different, cautious, as if he already knew the answer. She brought me a dress for the wedding, and she explained some things about her family's social position. Another silence. Mom, look. Things are complicated. Vanessa's family has very high expectations. Her dad handles million-dollar businesses. They have investments in dollars, gold, and real estate. It's a very different world from ours. Ours. As if he suddenly wasn't part of my world anymore. And what does that have to do with me, Ethan? It doesn't have to do with you, Mom. It has to do with fitting in, with doing things in a way that everyone feels comfortable. And I won't be comfortable at my own son's wedding? Of course you'll be comfortable. It's just that, well, there are certain ways of doing things in that environment. His voice grew more distant, as if he were talking to me from another planet. The dress Vanessa brought you is perfect, Mom. It's elegant and appropriate. Elegant. That word sounded strange in his mouth. My son, who grew up buying clothes at discount stores, was now talking to me about elegance. You're not ashamed of me now, are you, Ethan? The question left my mouth before I could stop it. Of course not, Mom. How can you think that? But his reply came too quickly, too rehearsed. I just want everything to go perfectly. It's the most important day of my life. When I hung up the phone, I sat in the darkness of my living room. The photo from Ethan's high school graduation still hung on the wall. I was by his side, still wearing my work uniform because I had rushed from the offices not to miss the ceremony. In that photo, Ethan hugged me with pride, showing me his diploma as if it were the most valuable treasure in the world. Now that same diploma hung framed in the house he shared with Vanessa, but I had been edited out of the history. The week before the wedding became a silent nightmare. Ethan didn't call again, and when I tried to contact him, his replies were increasingly cold and distant. I'm very busy with the final details. We'll talk calmly after the wedding. Don't worry about anything, Mom. But I did worry. I worried that my son had become a stranger. I worried that Vanessa's words had found an echo in some dark corner of his heart. I worried that after so many years of sacrifice, he really felt I was an obstacle to his happiness. On Thursday night, while ironing the gray dress Vanessa had forced upon me, the doorbell rang. It was David, my older son, with a bottle of whiskey and that worried look he got when he had something difficult to tell me. "How are you doing, boss?" he said, using the affectionate nickname he'd given me since he was a kid. "Here, getting ready for your brother's wedding." David looked at the gray dress spread out on the table and frowned. "That rag is what you're going to wear?" "It's what they gave me to wear." "They gave you? Who gave you?" I told him the whole story. Vanessa's visit, the photos, the explanation about social standing, the phone conversation with Ethan. David listened in silence, mechanically filling and emptying his glass of whiskey. "That damn Ethan," he mumbled eventually. "He was always kind of a classist jerk, but this is another level. Don't talk about your brother like that." "Are you seriously going to defend him, boss? After how he's treating you?" David got up and paced my small living room like a caged animal. "You know what he told me last week when I went to see him at his place? That I should improve my presentation for the wedding, too. That his fiancée commented that my truck looked too ghetto parked outside their building." The blood rushed to my head. David worked as a mechanic in a garage in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. He was honest, hard-working, a good man who supported his wife and 2 kids with dignity. His truck was old but spotless because he cared for it himself. And what did you tell him? I told him to go to hell. But then I felt bad, because Mom is my boss, and my boss doesn't deserve those insults. David sat beside me and took my hands. "Look, boss, I know you love Ethan very much, but that guy isn't the brother I knew. That woman has him hypnotized with her money and her high society crap. But it's his happiness, David? If he's happy with her, are you happy, boss? Are you happy feeling like you have to hide at your own son's wedding?" The question hurt because I knew the answer, but I didn't have the courage to say it out loud. "I just want my children to be well." "Well, your youngest son isn't well. He's sick. Sick with classism, sick with shame about where he comes from." David stayed with me until very late that night. When he left, he hugged me tighter than usual. "Boss, if anyone disrespects you at that wedding tomorrow, call me. I don't care if they are the most powerful millionaire family in the country. Nobody treats my mother like that." Saturday arrived like a sentencing. I woke up early, showered, put on the gray dress, and applied makeup with the only mascara I had, nearly dried out by time. In the mirror, I looked exactly what Vanessa wanted me to be. Invisible, insignificant, easy to ignore. The church in Manhattan was imposing. I had never been in such an elegant place. The stained glass windows projected golden colors onto the polished marble, and the altar was decorated with flowers that cost more than a month of my salary. The guests arrived in cars that glistened under the sun. BMWs, Mercedes-Benz, late-model Audis. Some even came in limousines. I arrived by subway. I got off 2 blocks from the church so no one would see me descend from public transport. I walked those 2 blocks in my new shoes that hurt my feet, feeling that every step took me further away from the world I belonged to. At the church entrance, a girl with a tablet checked the guest list. When I gave her my name, she looked me up and down with a professional but cold smile. "Ah, yes, Mrs. Miller. You're in the 4th row on the right side. Excuse me. I think there's a mistake. I'm the groom's mother." "No mistake, ma'am. Those are the instructions I was given. The 4th row. Not even the 3rd they had initially promised." I sat where instructed, surrounded by people I didn't know who looked at me curiously. In front of me sat Vanessa's distant aunts, Women covered in jewelry talking about their vacation homes in the Hamptons and their investments in hedge funds and stock market shares. The first row on the bride's side was occupied by Vanessa's parents and their sponsors. Men in expensive suits running million-dollar businesses. Women displaying family inheritances in the form of diamonds and pearls. The conversation revolved around dividends, capital returns, and the latest fluctuations in the price of gold and crypto. On the groom's side, the first row was empty, completely empty, as if Ethan had no family. When it was time for the couple's entrance, everyone stood up. Ethan walked toward the altar arm in arm with one of Vanessa's aunts, because according to the protocol they had established, it was more elegant for him to enter, accompanied by a woman from the bride's family. My son, who had cried in my arms after his first heartbreak at 16, who had run to hug me when he got his first job, who had told me 1,000 times that I was the most important woman in his life, walked toward the altar without even turning to look for me. When Vanessa made her entrance, it was like a magazine spread. Her dress cost more than everything I had earned in 2 years, and the veil seemed like a silk cloud floating behind her. The guests sighed in admiration. Photographers fired hundreds of shots, and I felt like an intruder spying on a world where I didn't belong. Throughout the ceremony, no one spoke to me. The women around me spoke over me as if I were a piece of furniture. They commented on the bride's beauty, the elegance of the event, the successful union between two families of the same social caliber. When the priest asked if anyone had any objections to the union, for one crazy moment, I thought about standing up and screaming that I objected to my son becoming a stranger, that I objected to being made invisible on the most important day of his life, that I objected to love being measured in bank accounts and investment portfolios. But I stayed silent, as I had been trained to be. At the end of the ceremony, while the couple signed the license and posed for official photos, I timidly approached. I wanted at least one picture with my son, a memory that I had been there, that I had been part of this moment. The event coordinator stopped me before I could reach them. "Excuse me, ma'am, but official photos are only for immediate family and the wedding party." "But I'm Ethan's mother." "Ah, yes, I know. But these photos are for the main album. There will be an opportunity later for more informal photos." Later never arrived. The couple was whisked directly to the country club for the reception, and I was informed that there was a small problem with my seating arrangement. For logistical reasons, my place had been assigned to a table at the back of the ballroom, next to service staff and some elderly people who seemed to be there more out of obligation than genuine invitation. As I watched my son dance the waltz with his brand new wife, surrounded by people celebrating not love so much as the successful alliance between family fortunes, I understood that Vanessa had won. She had achieved what she set out to do from day one, erase me from Ethan's life as completely as if I had never existed. That night, I returned to my apartment on the last subway train. The gray dress smelled of sadness and defeat. On my table, the photo of little Ethan dressed as a pirate still sat, smiling at me with that pure joy I would never see in his eyes again when he looked at me, if he ever looked at me again. The days after the wedding passed like a slow death. I heard nothing from Ethan for 2 full weeks. Not a call, not a text, not even a "thanks for coming." After the most important event of his life, it was as if I had fulfilled my function of being present without bothering anyone and could now vanish completely. David came to see me almost every day after work. He brought me takeout tacos or pastries and sat with me watching the soap operas I was no longer interested in. One afternoon, while distractedly flipping through the newspaper, I found the society section. There it was, a full page dedicated to the wedding of the year in Manhattan. The photos were beautiful. Ethan and Vanessa posing like fairy tale princes, surrounded by elegance and abundance. The guests wore their finest clothes, the flowers looked like works of art, the cake was an architectural, multi-tiered construction. Everything perfect, everything impeccable. I did not appear in a single photo. It was as if I had never been there. "Don't torture yourself reading that, boss," David said when he saw me with the newspaper. "But I need to understand what happened. I need to understand how we got here. What happened is that your son turned into an idiot, end of story. But I knew it wasn't that simple. There was something deeper, something that had been quietly growing for months, and I had chosen to ignore it because it was easier than facing it. The call came on a Wednesday evening. It was Ethan, finally. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" His voice sounded strange, as if he were reading a script. "Fine, son. And you? How is married life?" "Very good, very good. Everything perfect." "Hey, Mom. I'm calling because Vanessa and I want to invite you to dinner Saturday." My heart jumped. Maybe they had reflected on what happened at the wedding. Maybe they realized they had treated me badly and wanted to apologize. "Really? I'd love to." "Yes, but it's going to be at Vanessa's parents' house. It's a small family dinner, very quiet." An alarm went off in my head. Why at the in-laws' house for a reconciliation? And where do they live? Greenwich. "I'll text you the address." "Oh, and Mom, could you arrive around 7? We're going to discuss some important things before dinner." On Saturday, I carefully got dressed. I put on my best dress, the navy blue one I had bought for the wedding before they imposed the gray one. I did my makeup, fixed my hair, and even wore the pearl earrings that belonged to my mother. I wanted to look presentable for this family that so intimidated my son. The Sterling family home was a modern palace on one of the most exclusive streets in Greenwich. The yard was larger than my entire building, and the facade was designed to impress. A gate attendant opened the electric fence after verifying my identity on a list. Ethan greeted me at the main door. He gave me a kiss on the cheek, but his hug was cold, distant. "Hi, Mom. You look great." "Thanks, son. This house is impressive." "Yeah, right? Come on. Let's go to the garden." Everyone is out there. We walked through a living room that looked like a museum, furniture that cost more than my annual salary, original artwork hanging on the walls, Persian rugs that were probably worth more than my entire apartment. Everything was designed to demonstrate power, success, old money accumulated over generations. In the back garden, a table was set for 5 people. Vanessa's parents were already seated. Mr. Armand Sterling, a man in his 60s in an impeccable suit with the air of someone accustomed to being obeyed, and Mrs. Patricia Sterling, an elegant woman who radiated the security that comes from being born with a silver spoon. Vanessa was seated between them, wearing a dress I recognized from Fifth Avenue shop windows. When she saw me arrive, her smile was the same as always, perfect and empty. "Mrs. Miller, how lovely to have you at our home." I sat in the chair they indicated at the end of the table, feeling like a child called into the principal's office. "Would you care for a drink?" Mr. Sterling asked. "We have French wine, single malt scotch, or if you prefer something more simple, we can offer mineral water." The word simple sounded like an insult disguised as courtesy. "Mineral water is fine, thank you." For the first few minutes, the conversation was superficial. They talked about the weather, city traffic, the latest political news. I nodded and smiled, trying to find my place in a chat that seemed to be happening in another language, even though it was English. Then dinner was brought out, dishes I didn't recognize, prepared by professional chefs and served on china that probably cost more than several months of my rent. I ate in silence, feeling that every bite was a test I was failing. It was dessert time when the real reason for the invitation arrived. "Mrs. Miller," Mr. Sterling began, wiping his mouth with a linen napkin, "Ethan has told us a lot about you. About your situation." "My situation?" "Yes. Your job, your apartment in Astoria, your economic circumstances. And well, since Ethan is now part of our family, we want to help." Vanessa spoke up with that sweet voice I had learned to fear. "See, Mrs. Miller, my father has many contacts in different industries. He manages investment portfolios that include service companies, hotel chains, industrial cleaning companies. We are sure we could get you a better job, with better benefits." I have a job. I've been at the same offices for years." "Yes, but imagine the possibilities," Mrs. Sterling interjected. "A job at a serious company, with private medical insurance, a decent annual bonus, perhaps even a small retirement plan. My husband knows people who manage employee pension funds." Mr. I. Sterling leaned forward. "The only detail, Mrs. Miller, is that it would be in Dallas, Texas. I have a partner who just bought a chain of hotels there. He needs reliable staff to oversee cleaning and maintenance. It would be a golden opportunity for you. Dallas, 8 hours by plane from New York City. 8 hours from my children, my life, everything I knew. But why Dallas? Isn't there anything here in the city? Ethan spoke for the first time since we had arrived in the garden. Mom, it's an incredible opportunity. You could have a new apartment, a salary 3 times what you have now. You could start fresh, meet new people. But my friends are here, Elena, David. David is an adult now, Mom. He has his family. And friends. Well, you can always make new friends. Vanessa placed her hand over Ethan's in a gesture that made me understand who had orchestrated this whole conversation. Besides Mrs. Miller, think about it. You would be helping Ethan. In Dallas, no one would know his past. You could start over and so could Ethan. Here in the city, there will always be people who associate Ethan with, well, with his family's economic limitations. His family's economic limitations. That was how they described my life of sacrifice and honest work. My son needs me here, I said, feeling the words choke me. Does he really? Mr. Sterling asked with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Ethan is a married man now. He has new responsibilities, new priorities. Vanessa and he are starting to plan their own assets, their future investments. They are considering buying stock in some companies, perhaps investing in real estate or cryptocurrencies. It's a crucial time to build long-term wealth. And frankly, Mrs. Sterling added, having to worry about your mother's economic needs could limit them. Young people need to focus their resources on securing their future, not on maintaining the past. The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone looked at me waiting for my answer, as if it were obvious that I should thank them for this opportunity to disappear from my son's life. And what if I don't want to go to Dallas? The question dropped like a bomb on the table. Mr. Sterling straightened in his chair. Mrs. Sterling frowned slightly, and Vanessa exchanged a look with Ethan. Well, Mr. Sterling said slowly, no one can force you, of course. But it would be a shame to waste this opportunity. Opportunities like this don't come up every day, especially for people of your profile, Mrs. Sterling added with a smile that was pure ice. Ethan finally looked me in the eyes. Mom, I just want the best for you. I think this is good for you. And what is best for you, Ethan? My question caught him off guard. For a moment, I saw a flash of the boy he had been, confused and scared. The best for me is for all of us to be well, for all of us to have what we deserve. And what do I deserve, son? He couldn't answer. He lowered his gaze to the tablecloth and mumbled something about thinking things over calmly. That night, I returned to my apartment with a bitter taste in my mouth that neither tea nor tears could remove. I understood that the dinner had not been an invitation. It had been a negotiation, and the message was clear. Either I disappeared voluntarily, or they would find a way to make me disappear. For the first time in my life, I wondered if a mother's love had limits. If there was a point where sacrifice became self-destruction, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure of the answer. I spent 3 days sleepless after that dinner. I tossed and turned, thinking about Ethan's face when he couldn't answer what I deserved. How he had lowered his gaze like a scolded child, but not to defend his mother, but because of the discomfort of having to face what he was doing. On Wednesday morning, as I prepared for work, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Mrs. Clara Miller? Yes, speaking. This is Attorney Miller from Mr. Armand Sterling's law firm. He asked me to contact you to send you the information about the job offer in Dallas. Could you come by our offices this afternoon to sign some documents? But I haven't accepted anything yet. I understand there are some details to clarify. That's why it's important for you to come today. Mr. Sterling is a very busy man, and these opportunities don't wait long. The pressure in his voice was subtle but clear. This wasn't an invitation. It was an appointment. What time? 5 o'clock this afternoon. I have your apartment address. I can send a car if you'd like. A car. For a woman who took the subway and bus, that was both a courtesy and a demonstration of power. No, thank you. I'll get there on my own. I hung up with trembling hands. I realized I had crossed an invisible line. It was no longer a family invitation. Now lawyers were involved. Mr. Sterling was moving his pieces as if I were a business problem to be solved. That afternoon, I arrived at the law firm offices in the financial district, Phi DI. It was one of those glass buildings that reflect the clouds and make anyone who enters feel insignificant. The receptionist, a girl Ethan's age but wearing clothes that cost more than my monthly salary, directed me to a conference room on the 20th floor. Attorney Miller was a man in his 40s, impeccably dressed, with that professional smile I had learned to recognize. Courteous but cold, efficient but soulless. "Mrs. Miller, a pleasure to meet you. Mr. Sterling has told me a lot about you." On the table was a thick folder full of documents, contracts, forms, papers filled with small print that made me dizzy just looking at them. "Look, Mrs. Clara. The offer Mr. Sterling is making you is truly exceptional. The starting salary would be $2,500 a month, nearly triple what you currently earn, plus a furnished apartment included, private major medical insurance, and an annual bonus equivalent to 2 months' salary. $2,500. It was more money than I had ever earned in my life. For a moment, the figure made me lightheaded. With that money, I could... But then I remembered the price. Never seeing my children again, starting over at 63, becoming the kind of mother who accepts money in exchange for disappearing. "It sounds very generous," I said carefully. "It is. Mr. Sterling manages considerable capital. He has diversified investments in multiple sectors. His companies manage fortunes exceeding hundreds of millions of dollars. When someone with that level of liquid net worth makes you an offer, it's because they see potential." The attorney opened the folder and began explaining the terms to me. The contract was for 5 years, renewable. I would have to start working in 3 weeks. The apartment was in a residential complex for employees of the Sterling Group companies, with people of your same socioeconomic level, as he put it. And of course, Mrs. Miller, this type of opportunity requires a certain commitment. Exclusivity, we could say. What kind of exclusivity? Well, Mr. Sterling highly values discretion in his employees, especially when those employees have family connections to people close to the company. I looked at him without understanding. "I'm referring to your son Ethan, Mrs. Miller. Since he is now part of the Sterling family, it is important that there are no conflicts of interest." "What kind of conflicts?" The attorney leaned forward with that smile I was sick of. "Look, let's be direct. Your son is at a crucial moment in his career. Mr. Sterling is considering offering him investment opportunities, perhaps including him in some of his most profitable businesses. Ethan could have access to private equity funds, participate in financing rounds, even manage high-yield asset portfolios." The words sounded like another language to me, but I understood the fundamental message. "But for that," he continued, "Ethan needs to show that he can handle his family affairs with professionalism. Mr. Sterling cannot risk family dynamics interfering with business. And am I a family dynamic that interferes? Mrs. Miller, you are a hard-working and respectable woman, but your constant presence in Ethan's life could be misinterpreted in certain circles. Mr. Sterling's partners, the investors Ethan would have to deal with, maintain very specific standards regarding family associations. There it was. They no longer bothered to disguise the blackmail with courtesies. Either I disappeared voluntarily, or Ethan would lose the opportunities they were offering him, and they knew I would never allow my son to lose anything because of me. And what if I don't accept the offer? Well, that's your decision, of course, but it would be a shame. Especially since Mr. Sterling has already spoken with some cleaning companies here in the city, and it seems the market is very competitive. A lot of young people willing to work for lower wages. The threat was clear. If I didn't agree to leave voluntarily, they would make sure I lost the job I had. I need to think about it. Of course. But Mr. Sterling needs an answer by tomorrow afternoon. As I said, he's a very busy man, and these opportunities don't wait. I left that office feeling as if I had been hit by a truck. In the elevator, my reflection in the mirrored walls showed a 63-year-old woman, tired, scared, who had just understood that she had been viewed as a corporate obstacle to be removed. That night, I called David and told him everything. My older son listened in silence, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "Boss, do you want to go to Dallas?" "No." "Do you want to keep watching Ethan humiliate you?" "No." Do you want to keep letting that rich asshole family decide your life? No. Then you know what to do. But it wasn't that easy. Because saying no meant accepting that I would lose Ethan forever. It meant recognizing that the child I had raised no longer existed, that he had been replaced by a stranger who measured love in bank accounts and social status. What if I lose him forever, David? Boss, with all due respect, haven't you already? That question hit me like a bucket of cold water. David was right. The Ethan who had rejected me at his wedding, who hadn't defended me at dinner, who had allowed his father-in-law to threaten me through lawyers, was no longer my son. He was a stranger wearing his face. The next day at 4 p.m, I called Attorney Miller. Attorney Miller, this is Clara Miller. Mrs. Miller, great. Have you made your decision? Yes. I am not accepting the offer. A long silence. Are you sure, Mrs. Miller? It's an opportunity that won't be repeated. I am completely sure. I understand. Well, Mr. Sterling will be disappointed, but we respect your decision. I hope so. By the way, Mrs. Miller, Mr. Sterling also asked me to inform you that the cleaning companies with which he has contracts have decided to restructure their staff. Unfortunately, your current position will be available for younger candidates starting next Monday. And there it was. The revenge was fast and efficient. For not accepting exile, I would be jobless. I understand, I said with a calm I didn't know I possessed. Are you sure you don't want to reconsider the Dallas offer? Completely sure. When I hung up, I sat in my living room, processing what had just happened. At 63, for the first time in my life, I had said no. I had chosen my dignity over financial security, my self-respect over my son's comfort. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe fully. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. Not because I knew what I was going to do without a job, but because I had finally stopped running from a truth that had been chasing me for months. My son no longer loved me. Maybe he had never truly loved me. He had only depended on me, but I was still Clara Elaine Miller. And if I had survived raising 2 sons alone, becoming a widow at 55, and working double shifts for decades, I could survive this too. The next day, I woke up with a strange feeling. For the first time in years, I didn't have to go to work. I didn't have to smile at bosses who paid me peanuts. I didn't have to clean offices where they earned in a day what I did in a month. I was free. Scared, penniless, but free. And that freedom tasted better than all the money they had offered to buy my disappearance. The news that I had lost my job spread quickly through the building. Mrs. Rodriguez, my lifelong neighbor, knocked on my door that same afternoon with a plate of tortilla soup and that look of concern women get when they know another woman is going through something terrible. Clara, I heard what happened. Is it true they fired you because of your daughter-in-law's family? They didn't fire me, Petra. I chose not to accept blackmail. She sat with me at the kitchen table while I recounted the whole story. From the wedding to the Dallas offer, from the lawyers to my decision to say no for the first time in my life. Oh, Clara, at your age, getting another job will be difficult. I know. And what are you going to do? That was the question that had been tormenting me since I hung up the phone. At 63, jobless, with few savings, and without references because Mr. Sterling had ensured no one in the cleaning sector would want to hire me. I don't know yet, but I'll do something. That night, while checking my few savings, my phone rang. It was Ethan. Mom, I heard you lost your job. His voice sounded different. Not worried, but annoyed. Yes, it was this afternoon. Why didn't you accept the Dallas offer? It was an incredible opportunity. Because I don't want to leave here, Ethan. This is my city, my life. But Mom, be realistic. What are you going to do without a job? How are you going to live? The coldness in his voice hurt more than the loss of the job. I'll look for something else. Something will come up. At your age? Mom, don't be naive. No one is going to hire a 63-year-old woman. Ethan paused, as if gathering the courage to say something he had been thinking. Look, I talked to Vanessa and her parents. They are still willing to help you, but you need to be more flexible. Flexible how? There are other options. Not necessarily Dallas. There are jobs in Philadelphia, in Baltimore, closer places. But it would still be far from you. Mom, we aren't kids anymore. I have my life, my marriage, my plans. You can't keep depending on me emotionally. His words fell like stones in my stomach. Depending on him emotionally. That was how he saw the Sunday visits, the breakfasts I made him, the times I called just to know how he was. Is that what I am to you? An emotional burden? You're not a burden, Mom. But you need to live your life, find your own happiness. My happiness was my children. Well, that's the difference between us. My happiness is my future, my marriage, building something of my own. Vanessa and I are starting to invest money. We bought some stock. We're looking at the possibility of buying an apartment as an investment. We are building assets. Assets. Another word that had entered his vocabulary since he got married. And I'm not part of that future? A silence that told me everything I needed to know. Mom, you'll always be my mother, but understand that dynamics change. I need to focus on my new family. New family. As if I were the old, obsolete family that had to be discarded. I understand, Ethan. You do? So, are you going to consider the options they are offering you? I'll think about it. Perfect. In the meantime, if you need anything urgently, I can lend you some money. But I need you to understand, it can't be a permanent thing. Lend you. My own son was offering to lend me money instead of helping me. After hanging up, I sat in the darkness of my living room, processing the conversation. Ethan hadn't asked how I felt, if I was scared, if I needed company. He had only wanted to confirm that I would resolve my problem in a way that wouldn't interfere with his new life. The next day, David came with a proposal. Boss, remember my friend Rick, the one with the welding shop? Yes, the one who lives in Bensonhurst. Well, his mother Rose has a small diner near the local market. Nothing fancy, but she does well. She's looking for someone to help with the cooking and waiting tables. Seriously? Seriously, it won't pay much. Maybe half of what you were earning cleaning offices. But it's honest work, and Rose is a good person. And she doesn't mind my age? On the contrary, she says she prefers someone with experience, who knows how to cook for real, not like these young girls who only know how to make burnt grilled cheese. That afternoon, I went to meet Rose. She was a woman my age, small but with an energy that filled her entire diner. The place was simple. 8 plastic tables, an open kitchen where everything was visible, and a menu written with marker on a piece of cardboard taped to the wall. You're Clara? Nice to meet you, I'm Rose. Sit down, let's talk. She sat me at one of the tables and brought me a coffee that tasted heavenly. David told me a little about your situation, that you lost your job for not accepting blackmail from rich people. Something like that. Look, Clara, I've had this diner for 30 years. I started when my husband left me with 4 kids. I didn't know how to cook much beyond the basics, but I learned because it was that or starve with my boys. Rose told me her story while preparing order after order for the customers who arrived. Construction workers, domestic staff, taxi drivers, hardworking people who needed good, cheap food. Rich people don't come here, Clara. People like us come here. People who get up early, who break their backs working, who count their pennies to make it to the end of the month. But they are good people. Honest people. And what would I have to do? Help me with the cooking, wait tables, keep the place clean. It's hard work, on your feet all day, but peaceful. No bosses to humiliate you, no crazy hours. We come in at 6 in the morning. We close at 6 in the evening. And the salary? $8,000 a month plus food and whatever tips you get. It's not much, but it's enough to live on. And once you learn the business, maybe we can talk about you becoming my partner. Partner. No one in my life had ever offered me a partnership in anything. When can I start? Tomorrow, if you like. That night, I called Ethan to tell him I had found a job. A diner? Mom, that's not progress. That's a step backward. It's honest work, Ethan. But you'll earn less than cleaning offices, and you'll smell like grease all day. Do you really prefer that to the opportunity they offered you in Dallas? I prefer it to running away from my own life. I don't understand why you're so stubborn. Vanessa's family is offering you something better, and you prefer to work in some grungy little diner. It's not grungy. It's clean and honest. Mom, don't be naive. Working there will make you look poor. Look poor. As if poverty were something shameful instead of a circumstance. Ethan, I've been poor my whole life, and I'm not ashamed of it. But I'm not poor anymore, Mom. Vanessa and I have big plans. We're going to invest in real estate. We're looking at buying foreign currency to protect ourselves from inflation. Her father is going to teach us about hedge funds, about how to make money work for us. I'm very happy for you, son. But understand that if you keep working in places like that, well, it will be difficult for us to see each other often. The people we move with now have certain standards. And there it was again, the standards. As if family love had to pass an income test. I understand perfectly, Ethan. You do? I do. I understand you're ashamed of me. I understand you prefer your new family to the one that raised you. I understand that for you, money is worth more than affection. That's not it, Mom. Yes, it is, son, and that's fine. It's your decision. But it's also my decision to work where I'm respected, earn what I can honestly, and live my life without asking anyone for permission. Mom, don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being real. I hung up before he could respond. For the second time in my life, I had said no. This time, not just to the blackmail of others, but to the humiliation of my own son. My first day at the diner was like being reborn. Rose taught me how to make her famous chicken stew, her savory beans that tasted heavenly, and her specialty iced tea that kept customers coming back every day. The customers treated me with respect. Good morning, Mrs. Miller. How are you doing? Thanks for the great food. They were simple people, but polite. People who knew how to value work and effort. At the end of that first week, when we were counting the tips, Rose smiled at me. You know what, Clara? I think you and I are going to make a great team. For the first time in months, I smiled for real. Not the fake smile I had used for years to please others, but a smile that came from within. I was 63, working in a local market diner, earning a fraction of what they had offered me in Dallas. And I was happier than I had been in years. 3 months after starting at the diner, my life had found a rhythm I hadn't known for years. I woke up at 5 in the morning, not because I had to rush to clean offices where I was treated like an invisible person, but because I was eager to get to a place where I was awaited with affection. Rose and I had developed a perfect routine. She handled the main dishes, and I took care of the sauces, the specialty drinks, and waiting tables. Customers had started asking specifically for my hibiscus iced tea, which I had perfected with a recipe my mother taught me 40 years ago. Mrs. Miller, Mr. Johnson, a contractor who came every day, would tell me, "Your hibiscus tea is the best around." My wife asked me to get the recipe, but I told her those secrets aren't given away. The customers had become a kind of adopted family. I knew their names, their stories, their problems. I knew that Elena worked caring for an elderly woman in Greenwich, and that her knees ached from climbing so many stairs. I knew that Marcus drove a cab 24 hours a day to keep his 3 children in school. I knew that Rosa sold subway passes in the station and saved every dollar for her granddaughter's school supplies. They were people who fought every day, who had no fortunes or investment portfolios, but who treated me with more respect and affection than I had received from my own family in months. One Friday afternoon, while wiping down the tables after lunch, Rose sat down with me with 2 cups of coffee. "Clara, I have something to propose." "Tell me." "My oldest son, the one who lives out of state, sent me some savings. He wants me to expand the business, add more tables, and offer breakfast too. And what do you think? I think it's a good idea, but I'm too old to manage it all alone. I need a real partner, someone I trust." She looked me directly in the eyes. "Would you be interested in becoming my 50% partner? You contribute work and experience. I contribute the initial capital. Half and half on everything. Profits, decisions, responsibilities. 50% partner." At 63, for the first time in my life, someone was offering me ownership of something. "Are you sure? I don't have any money to invest." "Clara, you've tripled my sales in 3 months. Customers come for your cooking, your service, for that way you have of making everyone feel at home. That's worth more than money." That night, I called David to tell him about the proposal. "Boss, that's incredible. Did you say yes yet?" "Not yet. It's a huge responsibility." "Responsibility?" "Boss, it's a golden opportunity. You're going to be an entrepreneur." Entrepreneur. The word sounded strange applied to me. What if I fail? What if you succeed? Besides, what's the worst that can happen? You end up working in a local market diner? David was right. I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. The next day, I told Rose that I accepted her proposal. We signed a simple contract, written by a customer's son who was a lawyer and who didn't charge us because, according to him, Mrs. Miller saved my life with her famous omelets when I was studying and couldn't afford to eat. The expansion process took us a month. We got 4 more tables, bought a new flat-top grill for pancakes and breakfast sandwiches, and decided to open at 6 in the morning to offer breakfast to the early workers. The first week of the new diner was a success. Revenue doubled. We had customers from opening until closing, and I discovered that I had a talent for managing a business. "Clara," Rose told me one afternoon while we counted the till, "you were born for this. You have an eye for numbers and people skills." It was true. After decades of managing a household with limited resources, keeping the diner's accounts came naturally to me. I knew exactly how much we spent on ingredients, how much we could charge without gouging the customers, and how to manage inventory so nothing spoiled. 3 weeks after the reopening, while I was preparing the drink of the day, an unexpected visitor arrived. Ethan walked into the diner dressed in a suit, looking at the place as if he had landed on another planet. The customers watched him curiously. It was obvious he didn't belong. His clothes cost more than any of their monthly salaries, and his look of disgust was impossible to hide. "Hi, Mom." "Ethan, what a surprise." He sat down at one of the plastic tables with a martyr's expression, as if contact with the surface might contaminate him. "Do you want something to eat? I have great chili." "No, thank you. I just came to talk to you." "Here? Wouldn't you rather go outside?" "Here is fine. It won't take long." His words carried that coldness I had learned to recognize. It wasn't a family visit. It was a mission. "Mom, Vanessa and I have been thinking. This job you have, this situation, is affecting us." "How is it affecting you?" "Well, people talk. Mr. Sterling's partners, Vanessa's clients, the families we socialize with, they know my mother works at a place like this." He looked around with contempt, as if the diner were a cave. "And what are they saying?" "They're saying things. Comments about my background, where I come from. That can affect the business opportunities they are offering me." "What kind of opportunities?" "Mr. Sterling wants to include me in a major investment, a real estate development project that could generate millions in profit. But he needs partners who have a certain profile." There it was again, the profile, the standards, appearances that were worth more than people. "And my job at the diner affects your profile?" "Mom, let's be realistic. Working here isn't dignified for the mother of someone who moves in serious business circles." The word dignified hit me like a slap. This job, where I woke up proud every day, where I had found respect and purpose, where I was building something of my own, wasn't dignified enough for him. "And what do you suggest I do?" Vanessa spoke to a woman she knows, the director of a very upscale assisted living facility in Westchester. "They need someone to supervise resident activities. It's a quiet job, with people your age, in a more appropriate environment." An assisted living facility. He was suggesting I go to work at a retirement home because it was more appropriate for my age. "And the salary?" "Well, it's less than you earn here, but it's more respectable. The facility caters to upper-middle-class people, well-known families. It would be an environment more in line with, well, with what I need you to project. What he needed me to project. My work had to serve his image, not my personal fulfillment." "Ethan, do you know what I do here?" "You cook and serve food. I am the owner of this business, a 50% partner. For the first time in my life, I own something." "Owner? Of a little diner?" His tone of contempt was impossible to hide. "Yes, of a little diner. My diner. Which I am building with my labor, my effort, my talent." "Mom, that's not a real accomplishment. Anyone can run a diner." "Anyone? Could you?" "I have bigger ambitions than a diner at the market. Like what Mr. Sterling is offering me. Participating in real estate investments that manage hundreds of millions in capital. Being part of a group that manages diversified portfolios in multiple sectors. Having access to private equity funds that generate annual returns of 20–30%. Ethan spoke of numbers that meant nothing to me, but that represented his entire future. "And for that, you need me to work in an assisted living facility?" I need you to understand that my career decisions cannot be affected by this? He gestured, encompassing the entire diner, all my customers, everything I had built with such pride. I understand perfectly, Ethan. You do? So, you're going to consider the job at the assisted living facility? No. The word left my mouth with a firmness that surprised even myself. No. No. I will not leave my business to work in an assisted living facility because you are ashamed of what I do. It's not shame, Mom. It's realism. Your realism is my nightmare, son. For 63 years, I lived for others. For your dad? For you? For David? For bosses who paid me peanuts. This is the first time in my life I am working for myself. I stood up and looked him directly in the eyes. This diner is mine. These customers respect me. This work fulfills me, and I will not change it to fuel your ambitions. Ethan stood up too, with that frustrated expression he got when things didn't go his way. Then you will have to understand that this will limit our relationship. I understood that months ago, Ethan. What I didn't understand was why I kept suffering over it. And you don't suffer anymore? Not anymore. Because I finally understood that you are not the son I raised. You are a stranger who looks like him. Ethan remained silent for a moment, as if my words had taken him by surprise. Fine, Mom. If that's your decision, it is my decision. He headed toward the door, but before leaving, he turned back. Just so you know, Vanessa is pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother. The news hit me like lightning. A baby. A grandson. Congratulations, I managed to say. Don't expect us to call you when he's born. If you want to meet your grandson, it will have to be on our terms. And he left, leaving me with a broken heart, but with my head held high. That night, as I closed the diner, Rose placed a hand on my shoulder. Are you all right, Clara? I'm free, Rose. For the first time in my life, I am completely free. And it hurt, but it was true. 6 months after that last conversation with Ethan, my life had taken a shape I never imagined possible. The diner had grown so much that we had to rent the next-door space to expand the dining area. We now had 16 tables, a menu that changed depending on the day of the week, and a clientele so loyal that some came from distant neighborhoods just to eat there. But more important than the business success was the woman I had become. Clara Elaine Miller at 64 was completely different from the woman who had cried in silence during her son's wedding. This Clara made decisions, set boundaries, and looked in the mirror every morning with genuine pride. One afternoon in December, while I was preparing the holiday eggnog that had become famous throughout the market, David arrived with a smile I hadn't seen in months. Boss, I have news. Tell me, son. Remember my friend Rick who works at the General Hospital? The one who comes for breakfast on Fridays? Yes, Andrew. Well, it turns out a young woman arrived at the hospital yesterday. Very young, very nervous, in labor. She was alone, without family, very scared. My heart sped up, though I didn't understand why. And it was Vanessa, boss. Your daughter-in-law. Apparently, she had a fight with Ethan and had no one to call. She had the baby last night. A boy. The news struck me like lightning. My grandson was born, and Vanessa had been alone in the hospital. Is the baby okay? He's perfect. But Vanessa, well, according to Andrew, she looked terrible. Not physically, but emotionally, like she was lost. I couldn't sleep that night. A grandson. As much as I had prepared for the possibility of never knowing him, the news stirred feelings I had tried to bury. The next day, as I opened the diner, I saw a familiar figure waiting at the door. It was Vanessa, but not the elegant, confident woman I knew. This Vanessa wore sweatpants and a simple hoodie, had deep circles under her eyes, and carried a baby wrapped in a blue blanket. Mrs. Miller, can we talk? Of course. Come in. I sat her at a back table and prepared her a cup of chamomile tea. The baby slept soundly in her arms, with that perfection only newborns possess. His name is Matthew, she said without my asking. He was born 3 days ago. He's beautiful. Ethan wasn't there when he was born. He was at a business meeting in Miami. Something about an investment in luxury resorts. He told me he couldn't cancel because there was too much money at stake. Her words came out choppy, as if it were the first time she had said them aloud. When the pain started, I called him. He told me to call my mom, that he would be back the next day. And your mom? My mom is in Zurich with my dad. A business trip they couldn't postpone. They went to close import contracts worth millions of dollars. Vanessa broke down. Tears started to fall as she held her baby. I had Matthew alone, Mrs. Miller. Completely alone. And when Ethan arrived at the hospital the next day, he didn't ask how I was. The first thing he said was that the baby looked like him. I remained silent, letting her talk. Then he started making calls. To his partners, to my dad, to all the important contacts to announce he was a father. But with me, he didn't talk. It was as if I had just been the machine that produced his son. And now? Where is Ethan? He left again. Now to Dallas for a conference on cryptocurrency and blockchain. He says they are investment opportunities he can't miss. He's building his son's financial future. Vanessa looked down at the baby sleeping, oblivious to all the drama. Do you know what he told me before he left? That I needed to learn to be more independent, that I couldn't call him every time the baby cried. And you came here because I have no one else. My university friends are all working or traveling. My family is in Europe. And you're the only person I know who genuinely loves Ethan. Her honesty completely disarmed me. Or who loved him, she corrected herself, until he became this thing he is now. What do you need, Vanessa? I don't know. Maybe just to talk to someone who understands. Someone who knows what it's like for Ethan to make you feel invisible. I poured her more tea and sat beside her. For the first time in years, Vanessa and I were on the same side. Do you know what he told me the last time I saw him? What? That I could meet my grandson, but only on his terms. That I would have to accept his conditions. And what did you answer? That I wouldn't. That I had lived too many years on other people's terms. Vanessa looked at me in surprise. You don't want to meet Matthew? Of course I do, but not at the expense of my dignity. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the familiar sounds of the diner that was starting to fill with breakfast customers. Mrs. Miller, do you think Ethan was always like this? No. The Ethan I raised was a sweet, generous boy who cried when he saw someone suffer. But that boy got lost somewhere along the way. When? I think when he decided his background ashamed him. When he decided that coming from where he came from was an obstacle instead of a strength. Vanessa adjusted the baby on her chest. You know what's saddest? I fell in love with an Ethan who no longer exists. The man I married is obsessed with money, with status, with impressing people he doesn't even truly care about. And what are you going to do? I don't know. My dad says divorce would be a scandal, that it would affect his businesses. My mom says I have to endure it for the baby. But you left your job, you lost your son, and you seem happier than when I first met you. Because I learned something that took me 63 years to understand. What? You can't buy love, but you can sell yourself for money. And once you sell yourself, you never get your real price back. Vanessa pondered my words. Can Matthew meet his grandmother? The question surprised me. Would Ethan allow it? Ethan isn't here. And when he is, he'll be busy with his investments and business meetings. He wants an heir for his future fortune, but he doesn't want to be a real dad. She held out the baby to me. With trembling hands, I took my grandson for the first time. He was perfect. Tiny. Warm. With those eyes that still don't focus but seem to see everything. Hello, Matthew, I whispered. I'm your Grandma Clara. The baby made a small noise, as if he recognized me. You know what, Mrs. Miller? I think you and I could be good friends. I think you're right. Over the following weeks, Vanessa began visiting me regularly. She brought Matthew, helped me in the diner when she could, and gradually told me more details about her marriage to Ethan. It was a sad story. A man so obsessed with accumulating wealth and status that he had forgotten to live. Ethan worked 18 hours a day, spoke only of investments and returns, and treated his wife and son as accessories to his successful image rather than as family. My dad offered to make him a partner in some of his companies, she told me one afternoon while Matthew slept in my arms. But Ethan wants more. He wants his own financial empire, to manage hedge funds worth hundreds of millions, to be one of those entrepreneurs featured in Forbes. And is he happy? I've never seen him happy. I've seen him satisfied when he closes a good deal, excited when his stocks go up, but happy. No. One day in February, 6 months after Matthew's birth, Ethan appeared at the diner. He arrived as always, impeccable, arrogant, with the expression of someone doing a favor just by being there. Mom, we need to talk. Hello, Ethan. Do you want to meet your son? He's here with me. I already know him. I came for a different topic. He sat at the usual table, looking around with the same contempt as the first time. Vanessa told me you come here often with the baby. Yes, he's my grandson. He is my son. And I don't want him growing up thinking that this, he pointed at the diner, is normal. What isn't normal? Honest work? Decent people? I don't want Matthew to think it's okay to settle for little. I want him to have ambition, to aspire to more. More than what, Ethan? More than a diner at a market. More than living paycheck to paycheck. More than this. I stood up and looked him directly in the eyes. Your son will grow up knowing that his grandmother built a prosperous business with her own hands. He will know that people exist who work with dignity and respect themselves. He will learn that love cannot be bought with money. And will he also learn that it's okay to defy family? That it's okay to be selfish? He will learn that it's okay to say no when someone tries to buy you, humiliate you, or make you invisible. Even if that person says they love you. Ethan was silent for a moment. I don't want Vanessa and Matthew coming here anymore. That's not your decision, Ethan. It's theirs. I am their husband and father, and I am their mother-in-law and grandmother. But more importantly, I am a free woman who no longer takes orders from anyone. Ethan stood up abruptly. This won't end here. You're right. It won't end here. It's going to get better. After he left, I sat in my diner, surrounded by my customers who had witnessed the entire scene in silence. Mr. Johnson approached and put a hand on my shoulder. Mrs. Miller, that boy doesn't know the mother he has. It's no longer my problem that he doesn't know it, Mr. Johnson. It's his problem now. Today, a year after all this, my life is completely different. The diner has become the heart of our small community. Vanessa works with me 3 days a week, has learned to cook, and is considering divorcing Ethan. Matthew crawls between the tables. He is the grandson of all the customers and grows up surrounded by true love. Ethan got what he wanted. He is a partner in a multi-million-dollar investment firm, manages capital portfolios that include real estate, stocks, crypto, and international funds. He appears in business magazines, drives a late-model BMW, and lives in a Greenwich estate that is worth more than everything I will ever earn in my life. But he comes to see his son alone, always alone. And when he watches Matthew playing with me, I see something in his eyes that all his money cannot buy. The envy of a man who has everything and is not happy, looking at a woman who has little and is fulfilled. Sometimes I wonder if the sweet boy I raised is still in there, buried under layers of ambition and fear of failure. But it is no longer my job to save him. My job now is to be the best version of myself. My name is Clara Elaine Miller. I'm 64 years old. I am the co-owner of a diner at the local market, and I am the full-time grandmother of the most beautiful grandson in the world. And for the first time in my life, when I look in the mirror, I like what I see. Have you ever experienced anything similar? Do you know someone who had to choose between their dignity and pleasing family? Tell me your story in the comments. If this story touched your heart, leave me a like and subscribe to the channel so this message can reach someone else who needs to hear it. Sometimes freedom hurts, but it is always worth it.